You want happiness, so you chase it. But the more you chase, the more it slips away, like a shadow that disappears when you reach for it. Fulfillment seems to hide behind every effort. This is the paradox that no one tells you about. Wanting something too much often ensures you never get it. The harder you strive to feel secure, the more insecure you become. The more you need love, the lonelier you feel. The more you try to be perfect, the more your imperfections scream at you. This isn't failure, this is the backwards law in motion. It's the truth that upends everything we're taught. When you try too hard to control life, you lose it. But when you let go, life opens its hand. The world isn't broken, you're just gripping it too tightly. Release the chase, and you may just find what you were looking for was already here. The journey begins not when you try harder, but when you stop trying to force it. The nature of the human mind is grasping. It clings to ideas, identities, goals, and images of how things should be. It projects an ideal version of life, then torments itself with the distance between that ideal and the present reality. We grow up thinking the key to fulfillment lies in the future, that we need to work harder, try more, become better. But no one explains what happens when you give everything and still feel empty. No one warns you that the more you obsess over feeling good, the worse you feel. You buy more, achieve more, look for validation, drown in motivation speeches, fill your calendar with plans, and still, the hollow space inside you grows. You begin to wonder if something is wrong with you. You've done everything they said would work, yet peace remains a ghost. The secret that no one tells you is this: trying to force happiness is the very thing that kills it. You can't wrestle joy into submission. You can't command calm by screaming into the chaos. You can't demand the universe bow to your timeline. You're not a failure for feeling this way. You're simply caught in the trap of backwardness. When you look at life through the lens of desire, you distort everything. The moment you say, "I must be happy," you create a standard. That standard breeds resistance to the moment. Now, every feeling that doesn't match your expectation becomes a problem. Sadness becomes unacceptable. Stillness becomes boredom. Uncertainty becomes anxiety. You begin to edit reality in your mind, turning neutral events into crises, spinning your thoughts like a storm. But what if the storm exists because you're trying too hard to calm it? What if trying to feel good is the very thing making you feel worse? The backwards law isn't just a clever idea, it's a doorway to truth. It tells you to stop running, stop fighting, stop chasing. It tells you that letting go is not surrender, it's freedom. When you stop clinging to the idea of how life should be, you begin to experience life as it is. And there, in the unfiltered moment, you discover a strange peace, not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer at war with it. Imagine someone drowning. They panic, thrash, scream. The more they flail, the more they sink. But the moment they stop struggling, they float. That's what happens when you stop fighting the current of life. The struggle was never with reality, it was with your expectations. You wanted things to be different. You wanted certainty, praise, pleasure, escape. And the world didn't obey, so you fought harder. But the current doesn't care about your plans. It moves with or without you. When you let go, you don't lose control, you discover a deeper kind of control. The control of choice, not force. The power to respond, not react. And in that space, peace is not something you chase. It's something you remember. We live in a society addicted to goals. The culture worships progress, results, and the illusion of constant growth. But when your self-worth is tied to achievement, you become a slave to outcomes. You can't rest because resting feels like failure. You can't slow down because slowing down feels like regression. You chase promotions, attention, love, like it's always one more thing, just out of reach. You tell yourself, once I get there, I'll feel better. But there keeps moving. And no matter how much you achieve, the gnawing feeling remains. That's not laziness or lack of ambition, it's the echo of truth trying to wake you up. The truth is, fulfillment doesn't come from getting more. It comes from needing less. It comes from being here, not being more. The backwards law cuts through the noise and shows you that the way forward is often to stop pushing forward. It's not the abandonment of action, it's the removal of obsession. Think of how many times in life you were happiest not when you were striving, but when you forgot to strive. in laughter with friends, in the stillness of a sunset, in the flow of creative work, in the quiet moments when you felt no pressure to be anything but yourself. That's the clue. Peace shows up when effort disappears. Joy arrives when you're no longer demanding it. You don't have to believe this to test it. Just notice what happens when you stop needing the moment to be different. Stop needing to impress. Stop needing to be understood. Stop needing to figure it all out. In that space, clarity grows. You don't lose your goals, you just stop being crushed by them. You still act, but not out of desperation. You still dream, but not out of lack. You move not to fix yourself, but to express yourself. The backwards law doesn't say don't care, it says stop clinging. It doesn't say abandon effort, it says abandon attachment. There's a difference between doing something because it brings you alive and doing something because you think you'll die without it. One is freedom, the other is fear. When you want something so badly that your sense of worth is tangled in it, you poison it. Love becomes neediness, ambition becomes anxiety, spirituality becomes ego. But when you let go of needing, wanting, proving, suddenly there's space. Space to breathe, to feel, to simply be. And in that space, everything flows. You don't have to force your path. You align with it. Most of us carry invisible scripts, stories about what success should look like, what happiness should feel like, what life should become. And we measure every moment against those scripts. If life matches the story, we're okay. If it doesn't, we panic. But those stories were never yours. They were programmed by culture, family, fear, and trying to live by them is like trying to walk with chains on. You were born free, but conditioned into captivity. The backwards law invites you to drop the script, to walk unarmed into this moment and see it without the filters, to stop arguing with what is and listen instead. You might find the moment is richer than you imagined, not because you changed it, but because you stopped resisting it. It's counterintuitive, and that's what makes it powerful. You've been told to always try harder, but what if the most courageous thing you can do is stop trying so hard? What if your relentless effort is not a sign of strength but of fear? Fear that if you stop running, everything will fall apart. But here's the truth. Sometimes everything needs to fall apart so something real can grow. The walls you built to protect yourself may be the very thing suffocating you. The goals you chase might be hiding the wounds you haven't healed. The identities you wear might be masks hiding your true face. You don't need to chase light, you need to stop running from your darkness. You don't need to escape your thoughts. You need to stop believing all of them. The freedom you want doesn't come from achieving more. It comes from seeing you were never broken to begin with. Every time you feel resistance, every time you feel like you're gripping life with white-knuckled fists, it's a signal, not to push harder, but to pause, not to dominate, but to surrender. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means choosing presence over pressure. It means accepting the truth of what is, even when it's not what you wanted. That acceptance doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerful, because now you're responding from clarity, not reacting from fear. You're choosing, not chasing. You're awake, not addicted. And in that space, you discover an incredible truth. You don't need more to feel whole. You just need less resistance. The backwards law works because it speaks to the deeper intelligence within you, not the frantic mind that calculates and compares, but the still voice beneath the noise. That voice doesn't speak in panic, it whispers in peace, and it says, "You're already okay. You've always been okay, but you couldn't hear it because you were shouting over it with your plans, your pressure, your endless pursuit. Now, with stillness, it begins to return. You don't need to force the silence. You just need to stop drowning it in noise. You'll find that clarity comes not when you solve everything, but when you stop needing everything solved. That happiness arrives not when you get everything you wanted, but when you no longer need to want. This is the paradox that sets you free. The more you chase life, the more it runs. The more you let go, the more it comes. You don't need to perform worthiness. You don't need to be impressive. You are already enough in this moment, as you are. The work is not to become better, but to realize you never had to be better to begin with. The pain you feel is not a failure, it's feedback. Feedback that your soul is tired of pretending, tired of forcing, tired of the never-ending race. You can step off the track, you can sit down, you can breathe, And in that breath, something ancient returns. Something you didn't lose, it was just buried under all the noise. When you finally get tired of trying to fix everything, you discover there was nothing broken. When you stop chasing after meaning, you find that life has been meaningful all along. When you stop trying to become someone, you remember who you are. This is the beginning of freedom, not the dramatic escape, but the quiet undoing, the release of tension, the softening of the grip, the return to center. You thought you had to go out and find something, but maybe what you were looking for was the moment you finally stop and listen to what's already here. The truth that doesn't need to be earned, solved, or achieved. The truth that simply is. We're wired to believe that effort equals reward. Grind harder, wake earlier, sacrifice more. They tell us success is earned through suffering. But sometimes, the more we grip the steering wheel, the more we veer off the road, the backwards. Law teaches that surrender is not weakness, it's the beginning of wisdom. Think of water, it flows around obstacles effortlessly. It doesn't fight, it adapts. The same applies to peace, love, purpose. The more we cling, the more they escape. But when we accept things as they are, when we stop demanding the universe to bend to our will, something strange happens. Life starts working with us, not against us. We don't need to hustle for worthiness. We're already worthy. Stop trying to become someone, and you'll discover who you truly are. The great myth of modern life is that control equals power. We're taught to believe that the tighter we hold on, the safer we are. We think life is like a mountain to conquer, one we climb step by painful step, and that pain is always proof of progress. But what happens when effort becomes a cage? What happens when the pursuit of control blinds us to the freedom already available? There's an ancient intelligence in letting go, a power that emerges not through domination, but through trust. We rarely notice it, because trust doesn't shout, it whispers, it invites, it waits for us to stop resisting. And when we do, when we finally allow ourselves to rest from the constant effort, something shifts. We begin to feel a sense of peace, not born from accomplishment, but from alignment. That's when we learn that control is often the opposite of freedom. Every part of society reinforces the glorification of effort. You hear phrases like never quit, push through the pain, and you'll sleep when you're dead, as if exhaustion is a badge of honor, as if burnout is evidence of ambition. We're encouraged to view stillness as laziness, surrender as defeat. But is it really defeat to stop fighting against the current, or is it wisdom? The backwards law shows us that sometimes the very thing we're trying to achieve is already here, obscured only by our frantic attempts to force it. Peace is not something you conquer, it's something you uncover, and to uncover it, you have to stop digging. When you let go, you create space, not emptiness, but openness. Openness for life to unfold without your constant interference. It's not that you stop acting or striving, but that your actions no longer come from fear or lack. You're no longer trying to fix something that was never broken. You're no longer racing toward an image of success that doesn't belong to you. You're allowing life to move, and you move with it, like a leaf floating downstream. Not because you're passive, but because you're aligned with the flow. There's a profound difference between drifting in apathy and floating in awareness. The first is resignation, the second is freedom. People misunderstand surrender because they think it means giving up on life. But surrender is not giving up, it's giving in to the rhythm of existence, giving in to the truth that not everything needs your control to work out. In fact, many things work better without it. Think about the most meaningful moments of your life: falling in love, finding inspiration, experiencing awe. Did those moments come through force, or did they arrive when you least expected them, uninvited, yet fully welcome? That's the nature of life when we stop trying to manipulate it. It reveals its gifts when we least demand them. We've been taught that if we aren't constantly striving, we're falling behind. But what if what we're falling behind from is not life itself, but an illusion of life? A life built on comparison, competition, and scarcity. A life where you're always behind someone else, always lacking, always needing more. That is not life. That is anxiety. And no amount of effort can fix an illusion. You have to see through it. When you do, you realize you don't need to run anymore. You're not late. You're not behind. You're exactly where you're meant to be. And from this place, movement becomes joyful again, not because you have to move, but because you want to. Imagine trying to hold onto water with a clenched fist. The tighter you squeeze, the more it escapes through your fingers. But when you open your hand, the water rests there peacefully. That's how life responds to us. The more we cling, the more things slip away. The more we relax, the more we receive. But it's terrifying to trust this truth, especially when we've been conditioned to believe the opposite. It feels like letting go means losing everything. But in reality, letting go is how we reclaim ourselves. When you stop gripping so tightly, you begin to feel the weight you've been carrying, and only then can you release it. Purpose is one of the most misunderstood pursuits. We treat it like a treasure map, with a single X marking the spot. We think we need to find the perfect job, mission, or path that will finally make us feel whole. But purpose is not a destination, it's a way of being. You live with purpose when you live with presence. When you stop trying to make your life look a certain way and instead allow your life to become a reflection of your truth. When your actions come from the heart, not from the pressure to prove. You might still work hard. You might still build and grow and dream. But the energy is different. It's not frantic. It's focused. It's not desperate. It's devoted. We're often told to fake it until we make it. Pretend to be confident. Pretend to be successful. Pretend to be at peace. But pretending is exhausting. It disconnects us from our reality and makes us feel like frauds. Even when we're doing well, the backwards law offers another way. It says, stop pretending. Start accepting. Accept where you are. Accept how you feel. Accept that you're human. This doesn't mean you'll stay stuck. In fact, it's the only way to move forward. Real confidence comes not from performance, but from permission, the permission to be imperfect, to be growing, to be in process. That you can't force trust. You can't force surrender. They arrive slowly, like dawn. They come through experience, through small acts of release. You let go of one thing, a belief, a fear, a pattern, and you feel lighter. You take another step. You release the need to control how people perceive you. You release the need to fix everyone's problems. You release the need to always know what's next. And suddenly, you're not carrying as much. You're moving more freely. You're not weighed down by roles or rules. You're simply here, doing your best, and that's enough. When you live by the backwards law, you begin to notice how much noise there is. Internal noise. The constant inner chatter about who you should be, what you should do, how far behind you are. You begin to hear the voice of comparison, always measuring you against some imagined ideal. But that voice is not truth, it's programming. And when you recognize it, you can choose not to believe it. You don't have to argue with it. Just see it. Acknowledge it. Let it pass. And underneath it, a quieter voice emerges. A voice that doesn't speak in demands, but in direction. That voice is your own. There's a story. We all carry the story of what life was supposed to be. Maybe you thought you'd be further along. Maybe you thought you'd feel more fulfilled by now. Maybe you thought success would feel different. But what if those stories were never yours to begin with? What if the life you were meant to live has been waiting behind the story you've been chasing? The backwards law gives you permission to rewrite the story, not from scratch, but from truth. You begin with where you are. You tell the truth about how you feel, and you allow that honesty to guide your next step. Not the step that looks good, but the step that feels real. When you stop trying to become someone, you begin to notice who you already are. And who you are is not broken. You may be wounded. You may be tired, but you are not broken. You are human. And being human is not a flaw to fix, it's a miracle to honor. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to justify joy. You don't have to wait for permission to feel peace. These things are your birthright. They've been waiting for you beneath the surface of striving. And now, as you let go of the struggle, they begin to rise. The irony is that when you stop chasing, you become more effective. When you stop trying to impress, you become more authentic. When you stop needing validation, you become more powerful. Not because you're doing more, but because you're doing less from fear. You're not scattered. You're centered. You're not pretending. You're present, and presence is magnetic. People feel it. Life responds to it. Doors open not because you forced them, but because you aligned with them. Opportunities come not because you manipulated them, but because you were ready for them. There's a deep relaxation in knowing you don't have to force life, a softening of the body, a calming of the breath, a settling of the heart. You begin to trust that life is not against you, that you don't need to control every variable, that you don't have to have all the answers. You trust that your path is unfolding. Even if you can't see the full map, you trust that your worth is intact. Even if your performance wavers, you trust that you are supported, even in uncertainty. The backwards law shows you that peace isn't something you earn. It's something you allow. It's not the absence of struggle, it's the absence of resistance to struggle. It's being able to sit with discomfort without needing to fix. It's the courage to feel what you feel without shame. It's the strength to rest without guilt. It's the clarity that comes from saying yes to what is, even when it's not what you planned. Letting go is not a what-I'm decision. It's a practice, a daily choice. Some days you'll cling again. Some days you'll forget. That's okay. The practice is not to be perfect, but to return. Return to trust. Return to presence. Return to the truth that you are enough. Not when you achieve something. Not when you fix everything, but right now, as you are. You let go, and you return. You let go again, and you return again. This is the rhythm of a peaceful life. This is the essence of the backwards law. You want happiness, then stop chasing it. That's the paradox no one wants to hear. The harder you run after it, the more it runs from you. Like a butterfly you try to catch. It flutters just out of reach the moment you get too close. The backwards law isn't just some abstract philosophy. It's an invisible rule that governs everything. You think you're seeking fulfillment by constantly improving your life, by filling your days with more, by setting goals and achieving milestones, by acquiring the next new thing, but deep down, you're fueling a fire of dissatisfaction. The constant seeking makes you blind to what is. It creates a gap between your present and your desired state, and that gap becomes suffering. You tell yourself, I'll be happy when, and so you never are. You set conditions for your peace. You make joy a transaction, and you think it's progress. But what if you've been walking the wrong way on a path that was never meant to be forced? What if, in your quest for happiness, you've become its biggest obstacle? The more you insist on finding it, the more you remind yourself that you don't have it. That absence grows louder. The lack intensifies. It's like echoing your own emptiness across the universe, expecting it to come back full. But it never does, because life responds not to your demands, but to your vibration. Not to your wants, but to your surrender. You scroll through social media and see curated smiles, perfect sunsets, romantic captions, people who seem to have it all. And you think, why not me? So you begin the chase, the relationship, the vacation, the dream body, the luxury, the spiritual awakening, and you dress it up with self-help quotes and vision boards. But deep inside, your spirit knows what your ego won't admit. You're still empty, because you're searching, and as long as you're searching, you're broadcasting lack. The backwards law says, the more desperately you want something, the more you push it away. It's not a punishment, it's balance. The universe cannot reward hunger with satisfaction when the hunger is based on rejection of the now. That hunger is not noble, it's resistance. And resistance always strengthens what you oppose. We've been conditioned to hustle, to want more, to make life a ladder we're always climbing. But no one told us that climbing is often the surest way to fall. Because when your identity is built on the next achievement, you're never truly whole in the now. The truth is terrifying. You already are what you've been trying to become. But the act of trying denies the being. You think you're being ambitious, but what you're really being is discontent. You think you're being visionary, but what you're being is ungrateful. You think you're striving for your best self, but what you're actually doing is rejecting your current self. And the more you run, the more you reinforce the belief that you are not enough. That belief, not the lack of success, is what poisons you. It poisons your joy, your relationships, your moments. You can't appreciate life while you're trying to escape it. The chase never ends. Today it's money, tomorrow it's love, then it's purpose, then it's legacy. And the mind keeps whispering, almost there, just one more step. But the finish line keeps moving. The satisfaction is always temporary. The thrill is fleeting. It's a high that wears off, and the withdrawal is brutal. so you seek the next fix. The cycle is not growth, it's addiction. And the worst part, you think it's noble. You confuse movement with progress. You confuse urgency with meaning. You confuse desire with destiny. But none of it is real. It's noise dressed up as purpose. It's distraction wrapped in ambition. Letting go isn't giving up. That's where most people get it wrong. Letting go is stepping out of the storm you created by trying to control the weather. It's choosing stillness in a world obsessed with motion. It's choosing presence over projection. It's not that you stop caring, it's that you stop clinging. You stop needing. You stop bargaining with life. You stop saying, "I'll be okay if," and you start saying, "I'm okay now." That shift changes everything. It's not passive, it's powerful, because it brings your soul back into alignment. It ends the war inside you. And when the war ends, peace becomes visible, not because it arrived, but because it was always there. You were just too loud to hear it. We don't find happiness, we uncover it. It's hidden beneath our resistance, our expectations, our narratives. When you stop resisting what is, you give space for what wants to be. You make room for grace. You don't earn happiness like a paycheck. You allow it like a sunrise. You don't manifest it by craving. You attract it by becoming. That's the real alchemy. Not doing more, but being less reactive, less attached, less hungry for what you already are. The moment you stop running is the moment the truth catches up with you. And it's beautiful, because suddenly, you realize that the void you were trying to fill never needed filling. It needed feeling. It needed your attention, not your escape. It needed your acceptance, not your fixing. You don't heal by changing your life. You heal by being fully present in the one you already have. That's the paradox. That's the backwards door. It looks like a wall until you stop pushing. Then it opens effortlessly. The mind loves goals, but the soul loves being. The mind loves control, but the soul loves flow. The mind creates problems so it can solve them and feel important. The soul just is. And that's the great conflict we all live with, until one day, we stop choosing the mind. We stop chasing illusions. We stop trying to bend reality. And we start being honest. Honest enough to admit that maybe, just maybe, we were never meant to find happiness the way they taught us. Maybe it's not at the top of the mountain. Maybe it's at the bottom, in the silence, in the surrender, in the breath you've been ignoring while planning the future. All your life you were told to chase your dreams. But what if dreams are not to be chased, but lived, and living doesn't begin when everything's perfect? It begins when you stop needing it to be. That is the still point. That is where joy lives, not in the next win, but in the absence of needing one. Not in becoming someone, but in unbecoming everything that told you you weren't already enough. There's a secret hidden in plain sight. You are the happiness you seek. You are the love you crave. You are the peace you long for. But the chase blinds you. It makes you forget. The mind says, it's out there. But the heart knows, it's right here. And every time you surrender to the now, every time you drop the need to be elsewhere, to be someone else, to have something else, you return. You return to truth. You return to wholeness. You return to the only moment that ever really mattered, this one. And in that moment, something magical happens. Life meets you, not because you chased it, but because you finally stopped running from it. We are taught from an early age that if we want something badly enough, we must work harder, want stronger, and strive endlessly until we achieve it. Yet, what if the very act of wanting too much is the reason we never get what we want? This is the riddle that the backwards law presents with painful clarity. The harder you try to control life, the more it slips from your grip. There is a strange irony in the way existence unfolds. And nowhere is it more evident than in our chase for certainty, success, happiness, and identity. People believe that effort always equals reward, that direction plus desire guarantees destiny. But life laughs at formulas. It moves like water, responding not to force, but to flow. You push and it pulls. You chase and it escapes. The more desperately you search for meaning, the more meaningless things begin to feel. Because when you fixate too much on an outcome, you become blind to the journey, to the subtle miracles happening along the way. And when you seek happiness with clenched fists, you miss the fact that joy has always been open-palmed.uc. Control is the illusion we cling to when fear whispers that without it, we're nothing. We try to grasp everything: people, plans, identities, time, as if possession equals peace. But the tighter we cling, the more things resist our grip. It's like trying to hold onto water in your hand. It slips through your fingers no matter how hard you squeeze. The more you resist uncertainty, the more anxious you become. The more you try to be perfect, the more imperfect you feel. The more you try to fix everything, the more broken you perceive things to be. It's not that effort is bad, but when effort is born of fear, it becomes counterproductive. Wanting love too badly often scares it away. Wanting peace too hard can disturb it. Wanting success obsessively can make you feel like a failure even when you're doing well. That's the paradox. That's the trap. The harder you try, the worse you feel. The more you grasp, the more things elude you. The more you seek, the less you find. There's a deeper wisdom in stepping back, not giving up, but letting go of the obsessive need to control everything. Surrendering to what is doesn't mean passivity, it means trust. Trust that life isn't something to conquer, but something to cooperate with. And that cooperation begins when you stop demanding that it conform to your expectations, because expectations are just disguised forms of control. You expect things to go a certain way, and when they don't, you suffer. But life never signed a contract to follow your rules. It dances to its own rhythm, and sometimes the music changes without notice. If you can't dance with it, you fall behind. But if you surrender to the rhythm, you find grace. People don't realize how much of their suffering comes not from life itself, but from the resistance they build inside themselves. A situation may be hard, yes, but it's the mental loop of, "This shouldn't be happening," that intensifies the pain. The internal fight against what becomes more exhausting than the challenge itself. Acceptance is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the courageous recognition that reality is happening, and you can either fight it endlessly or align yourself with it. Once you do, things begin to shift in the most unexpected ways. You start to see that what you were chasing was never far away. It was simply obscured by your own desperation. When you stop trying to force your way into life, you start to notice doors you never saw before. Life opens up to those who stop demanding and start observing. When you stop seeking validation, you start discovering your own worth. When you stop striving to be someone, you start remembering who you truly are. It's almost as if life was waiting for you to stop running so it could catch up and show you the view. The backwards law shows us that by stepping back, you move forward. By letting go, you gain control. By trusting instead of gripping, you finally breathe. Think about how relationships fall apart when one person becomes too needy. Think about how creativity dries up when you're too desperate for inspiration. Think about how relaxation becomes impossible when you're trying too hard to relax. You cannot force what is meant to be felt. You cannot demand what is meant to be discovered. The most powerful experiences of life, love, peace, beauty, meaning, they all arrive when you're not begging for them. They whisper, not shout. And you can only hear them when your inner noise is quiet enough. This doesn't mean you sit idle or abandon responsibility. It means you act from a place of presence, not panic. You pursue with intention, not desperation. You hold goals lightly, not tightly. You understand that the outcome does not define your worth, that your identity is not hinged on achievement, that failure is not fatal, and success is not salvation. You begin to see that life is not a test, but a tapestry, one you're weaving with every breath, and the tighter you pull, the more the thread snaps. But when you relax, you create something beautiful, seamless, and surprising. We've all been conditioned to measure our progress through outcomes, to evaluate ourselves by milestones. But the backwards law reminds us that peace is not found at the top of the mountain, it's felt in the steps you take getting there. Often the things you want most come not when you chase them, but when you become the kind of person who naturally attracts them. When you stop seeking happiness and focus on becoming whole. When you stop chasing love and start loving yourself. When you stop needing success and start doing meaningful work. In this reversal lies truth. Not because it sounds poetic, but because life works like that. It's subtle, non-linear, and paradoxical. Just when you think you've lost everything, you find what really matters. Just when you stop trying, things fall into place. Just when you loosen your grip, what's meant for you finds its way. It's not magic. It's not laziness. It's alignment. Alignment with what's real, with what's already flowing through you, but has been blocked by layers of striving and self-doubt. The backwards law invites you to peel back those layers, to see that what you've been searching for is not in the distance, but in the moment. It's not somewhere else, it's here, hidden in plain sight, waiting for you to stop looking so hard and start seeing clearly. You begin to realize that effort is not the problem, it's the energy behind the effort. Is it fear-based or freedom-based? Are you acting because you feel incomplete or because you are expressing something complete within you? That distinction changes everything. When your actions come from fear, you constantly feel behind. When they come from presence, you feel peace, even in the chaos. That peace is the true power. It's not loud, but it transforms everything. The backwards law humbles us. It shows us that we are not the masters of the universe, but co-creators with it. It reminds us that control is not strength, it is often resistance disguised as ambition. And resistance, when held too long, turns into suffering. Letting go, on the other hand, is not giving up. It's giving into the current that knows where you're meant to go. Life has a strange intelligence. The more you try to steer it against its grain, the more it pushes back. But the moment you align with its current, it carries you to places you could never have imagined on your own. You start to notice that the people who seem at peace aren't those who have everything figured out, but those who have stopped fighting life. They aren't passive, they're deeply engaged, but they move with ease, because they've dropped the burden of needing life to be a certain way. They've understood that joy is not in perfection, but in presence. That meaning is not in the future, but in the moment. That love is not something you find, it's something you allow. And that the more you let go of the need to control everything, the more life meets you with grace. In this surrender, there is power, a quiet, deep power that doesn't need to shout or prove itself, a power that is not about dominance, but about alignment. You stop trying to dominate your emotions and start listening to them. You stop trying to crush your fears and start understanding them. You stop trying to manipulate the world and start cooperating with it. And in that cooperation, you find what you've been searching for all along. Not in the prize, but in the process. Not in the getting, but in the being. Not in the forward rush, but in the backward wisdom of letting go so that something greater can rise in its place. We live in a world obsessed with progress, with goals, with striving. From an early age, we are taught that to have value, we must hustle, that the harder we work, the more we chase, the more successful we become, the more we desire happiness, the more we read self-help books, make gratitude lists, curate our thoughts, optimize our mornings, and visualize our dreams. But few pause to ask, what if all this chasing is the very thing keeping us from what we seek? The backwards law tells us something radically counterintuitive, that the more desperately we want something, the less likely we are to get it. This is not just some spiritual riddle or poetic idea. It is a psychological and emotional pattern that unfolds in real time, in real lives, over and over. Want to be happy? Stop chasing happiness. Want to be confident? Stop fighting your insecurities. Want to be loved? Stop obsessing over being worthy of love. Because the moment we want something too much, we communicate internally and to the universe that we do not have it. That lack becomes our dominant frequency. That emptiness grows every time we try to fill it by force, and in doing so, we drive the very thing we want further away. This strange paradox can be seen in almost every area of human life. Think about anxiety. The more we try not to feel anxious, the more anxious we become. We tell ourselves to calm down. We breathe deeply, we drink tea, we listen to calming music. But beneath all those actions is a resistance to the feeling itself. We're still trying to get away from it, and so the anxiety grows, because we're fueling it with fear and rejection. The same thing happens with sleep. You lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, begging yourself to drift off. But the harder you try to fall asleep, the more alert you become. Because sleep isn't something you chase, it's something you allow. It happens when you let go, not when you force it. That's the backwards law in motion. The desire to have a thing often prevents the very having of it. Even relationships aren't exempt. The more desperate someone becomes to be loved, the more they often repel the very connection they seek. You can see it in dating. A person who clings, who overtexts, who constantly needs validation, often drives the other person away, not because love is cruel, but because love, too, cannot be controlled. It is a response to presence, not a reward for effort. But when someone is grounded in themselves, when they're not obsessed with being loved or wanted, they become magnetic. Why? Because they're not trying, they're simply being, and being, as strange as it may sound, is infinitely more powerful than striving. It has no resistance, no pressure, no demand. It creates space for things to come naturally. And it is in that space where love blooms, not in the grasping hands of desperation. The same pattern plays out in wealth. People who are consumed by the fear of being poor often make impulsive, unwise financial decisions. Their fear of not having leads them to overspend, to gamble, to chase quick returns, to invest in things they don't understand. But the person who approaches money with clarity, with patience, with confidence, not because they are rich already, but because they're not panicked by lack, tends to make wiser moves. Ironically, it's the absence of desperation that opens the door to true abundance. You see this even in entrepreneurs, those who are obsessed with success, who constantly chase external validation, often burn out or self-sabotage. But those who focus on the process, who enjoy building for its own sake, who let go of attachment to outcomes, these are the ones who often achieve the greatest success. Not because they stopped caring, but because they stopped chasing. They stopped resisting. The journey, the backwards law, is not about giving up. It's about giving in. It's about seeing that control is often an illusion, and that the more we try to force life into our ideal image, the more life pushes back. It's about learning to move with the current, not against it. About surrendering, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Because surrender is not quitting, it is aligning. It is saying, I no longer resist what is. I no longer reject the present in favor of some imagined future. I am here now, fully, and in that fullness, in that quiet presence, life has room to move, to flow, to surprise you in ways you never expected. The person who surrenders is not passive, they are powerful. They have stopped fighting life, and in doing so, have begun to truly live it. This truth echoes through spiritual traditions, through the teachings of ancient sages and modern thinkers alike. Buddhism teaches non-attachment. Taoism speaks of wu-wei, effortless action. Jesus taught that the meek shall inherit the earth. All these teachings point to a truth that stands in stark contrast to modern self-help. That striving is not always strength, that letting go is not always loss, that wanting too much often means having too little, not in possessions, but in peace. And peace, as it turns out, cannot be hunted down or acquired. It can only be accepted. The more we seek peace, the more we tell ourselves we do not have it. And so the seeking becomes suffering. Consider the way we approach self-improvement. We meditate not to be still, but to become enlightened. We exercise not to enjoy movement, but to perfect our body. We read not to savor wisdom, but to fix our flaws. But when everything becomes a means to an end, the end always eludes us. The person who meditates simply to be still may discover more clarity than the one who chases transcendence. The one who exercises because they enjoy the process may become stronger than the one who works out in hatred of their current form. The one who reads out of curiosity may grow more than the one who reads out of insecurity. Because presence multiplies, but chasing divides, even with emotions. We apply the same misguided logic. We try to avoid sadness, to block anger, to numb grief. But the more we resist these emotions, the louder they become. Feelings are not problems to be fixed, they are signals to be felt. When we stop trying to change them, they often change on their own. Sadness, when allowed, softens. Anger, when acknowledged, dissolves. Grief, when honored, heals. But the moment we fight these feelings, we prolong them. The moment we label them as bad, we feed them with shame. And shame, more than any feeling, is the real prison. So how do we live with the backwards law? We start by noticing the moments when striving turns to suffering, when effort becomes resistance, when wanting becomes grasping. We ask ourselves, am I doing this from love or from lack, from presence or from fear? We begin to shift not by stopping our actions, but by softening our attachment to their outcomes. We still work hard, but not to prove our worth. We still seek growth, but not because we think we're broken. We still care, but we do not cling. This is not detachment in the cold, cynical sense. It is a warm, loving detachment in knowing that you are already whole. That life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. And perhaps most importantly, we begin to cultivate trust. Trust that life knows more than we do, that timing matters, that not getting what you want can sometimes be the greatest gift, that control is not the path to power, alignment is. And alignment begins when we stop resisting what is, when we let the present moment be enough, when we stop chasing and start allowing. In that allowing, there is space, and in that space, things begin to move, not because we forced them, but because we stopped holding them back. This is the strange and beautiful truth of the backwards law. What you run after runs from you, but what you allow begins to flow toward you. Not because you gave up, but because you finally let go. We grow up being told to chase success, happiness, love, and meaning. We're conditioned to believe that the harder we chase these ideals, the closer we get to living a fulfilling life. But reality doesn't play by those rules. The more we chase, the more distant the prize becomes. This is the cruel paradox at the heart of the backwards law. Wanting something so badly actually pushes it further away. It's not that wanting is wrong, it's that obsession blinds us and control destroys flow. We imagine that by tightening our grip, we can force outcomes. But in truth, we only create more tension, more resistance, and more suffering. The harder you try to be confident, the more insecure you feel. The more you aim to be happy, the more aware you become of your unhappiness. The more you crave love, the more loneliness takes root. And the more you fight to control everything, the more chaotic life becomes. The backwards law reveals that the path to peace, joy, and meaning isn't found in relentless pursuit, but in letting go. But this goes against everything we've been taught. We live in a world of effort, goals, competition, and ambition. So when we hear that we must surrender, it feels like defeat. Surrender is not defeat. Surrender is clarity. Surrender is strength. It's the quiet realization that life moves best when we stop trying to bend it to our will. Control is an illusion we cling to because uncertainty scares us. We want to believe that with the right plans, strategies, and effort, we can steer every aspect of our lives toward the ideal. But that ideal doesn't exist. Life isn't a straight road with signposts and promises. It's a river, and rivers don't respond to force, they respond to flow. Trying to force a river to bend will only lead to exhaustion and failure. But stepping into its current, aligning with its movement, and letting it carry you will take you further than you could ever go by swimming upstream. The backwards law isn't an invitation to laziness. It's an invitation to presence. It teaches that the moment you stop resisting what is, you begin to create space for what can be. You stop chasing happiness and begin to experience peace. You stop begging for love and begin to live with self-worth. You stop grasping at outcomes and begin to move with trust. It's hard to let go, especially in a world that rewards hustle and glorifies control. But clinging only tightens the knot, and resistance only deepens the wound. The backwards law asks us to do what feels counterintuitive, to lean into the very thing we're trying to escape. If you're feeling lost, don't try to find clarity by force. Instead, sit in the uncertainty. If you're heartbroken, don't try to erase the pain. Feel it fully. If you're anxious, don't drown it in distractions. Let the fear pass through you. Only by acknowledging what's here can you transform it. What you resist persists, but what you allow begins to dissolve. Most people run from their emotions. They numb, avoid, or distract. But the backwards law says, face them, not with aggression, but with awareness. There's a quiet power in sitting still when your world is spinning. There's a deep wisdom in observing your chaos without judgment. You don't have to fix everything. You just have to feel it. In feeling, you begin to heal. This principle applies to relationships, work, healing, and even spiritual growth. When you chase love, you attract people who reflect your need, not your worth. When you chase success, you sacrifice joy on the altar of achievement. When you chase enlightenment, you inflate the ego instead of transcending it. But when you simply live with presence, when you do your best, love yourself, and accept the moment as it is, you begin to attract all the things you used to chase, because now you're aligned. The more we try to rid ourselves of our flaws, the more they haunt us. The more we chase perfection, the more broken we feel. But when we accept our imperfection, we begin to walk with authenticity. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy. You don't have to be successful to be enough. You don't have to be in control to be safe. This is the heart of the backwards law. True freedom comes when you stop trying to be free. True love comes when you stop trying to earn it. True success comes when you stop needing it to define you. And true peace comes when you stop fighting for it. Stillness is not found in escape, but in full presence. The answers don't lie in the future. They lie in the moment. When you let go of the need to be somewhere else, someone else, or something else, you begin to access the power of now. And in that now, everything shifts. The mind, which always wants to control, will rebel against this truth. It will say, "But if I stop trying, everything will fall apart." That voice is fear talking. That voice is the ego clinging. But life doesn't fall apart when you let go. It begins to fall into place. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in, not to failure, but to flow, not to weakness, but to wisdom. This doesn't mean you stop having goals or making plans. It means your energy shifts. You still act, but from a place of trust, not desperation. You still dream, but without clinging. You still love, but without fear. You begin to live without the weight of needing everything to go your way. Because now, you trust that even if it doesn't, you'll be okay. And that trust, that deep-rooted faith in life, is where true power lies. So many people spend their lives in tension, chasing what they think they need, only to arrive empty. Success isn't sweet when it's fueled by fear. Love isn't deep when it's born from need. Peace isn't lasting when it's built on control. The backwards law liberates us from this trap. It invites us to soften, to breathe, to allow. Life unfolds when you stop trying to unfold it. Joy arrives when you stop demanding it. Growth happens when you stop trying to force it. It's in the surrender that the miracle begins. And though it may feel backwards, it's the only way forward that truly leads home. You chase happiness like it's running away from you, sprinting toward it with all your might, believing that the faster you go, the sooner you'll arrive. You clutch at it with desperation, as though it's something fragile that might slip through your fingers if you don't hold on tight enough. You want it so badly that its absence starts to define your existence. But here's the paradox. The more you chase happiness, the more it eludes you. The more tightly you try to grip it, the more it seems to slip through the cracks. That is the cruel irony of the backwards law. The harder you strive for something, the more you reinforce the fact that you don't already have it. You become trapped in a cycle where your efforts backfire, where striving intensifies your suffering instead of alleviating it. It's easy to see why this happens. Our minds are wired to believe that effort equals reward, that pursuit equals attainment. We've been raised in a world that worships the hustle, that glorifies endless striving. We're told that if we just work hard enough, want it badly enough, and never give up, then the universe will eventually reward us. But this isn't always true, especially when it comes to the things that matter most: peace, love, meaning, joy. These things aren't earned through struggle. They often emerge when we stop struggling, when we surrender, when we let go. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in. It means relaxing your death grip on how you think things should be and making room for how they actually are. It means recognizing that control is often an illusion, and that peace arises not from domination, but from acceptance. Letting go means you stop resisting what is. You stop trying to force the world into a shape that conforms to your desires, and instead allow the world to be what it is. This shift from striving to surrender is the heart of the backwards law. It's the moment when you stop swimming upstream and start flowing with the current. You stop trying to manipulate reality and start aligning with it. There's an ancient wisdom in this paradox, one echoed in spiritual teachings across cultures. The Tao Te Ching says, by letting go it all gets done. The world is won by those who let it go. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering, and that liberation comes from release. Even modern psychology tells us that acceptance is more effective than resistance. When dealing with stress, trauma, or depression, the common thread is clear. When we stop grasping, life begins to unfold in unexpected and often beautiful ways. The serenity we seek is on the other side of surrender. Still, surrender is hard. It goes against everything we've been taught. It feels like weakness. It feels like failure. We fear that if we stop trying, everything will fall apart. We think that without our constant effort, nothing will improve. But this is just the ego's illusion. In truth, our constant interference often creates more problems than it solves. Our obsession with control blocks us from seeing possibilities beyond our narrow vision. Letting go requires trust. It demands a kind of courage that most people are never taught to cultivate. It's not passive. It's not about doing nothing. It's about doing the inner work of loosening your grip, of softening the walls around your expectations, of releasing your addiction to outcomes. When you truly let go, you begin to experience reality in a more honest and open way. You stop filtering everything through the lens of, is this getting me what I want? And start noticing what is already present. You begin to see the beauty in the mundane. You appreciate the now instead of living perpetually in the future. You find value in the process instead of obsessing over the destination. This shift is subtle, but it changes everything. You stop being at war with life and start being in harmony with it. You stop treating yourself like a project to be fixed and start embracing yourself as a being to be loved. You stop trying to improve your life and start learning how to be in it. Letting go doesn't mean you lose your ambition. It means your ambition stops owning you. It means your goals are no longer rooted in lack, but in presence. You may still work hard, but the energy behind your effort is different. It's no longer driven by fear or insecurity or desperation. It's fueled by love, curiosity, and alignment. You can still pursue success, but you're not crushed when it doesn't arrive in the exact form you imagined. You can still dream, but your identity isn't wrapped up in whether those dreams come true. You become more fluid, more adaptable, more resilient. You realize that life is not a test to be passed, but a mystery to be lived. People often ask, but if I stop striving, won't I just become lazy or stagnant? That's the fear talking. The truth is, when you stop striving from a place of lack, you start acting from a place of wholeness. You don't need to chase love, you become love. You don't need to chase meaning, you discover it in your actions. You don't need to chase peace, you uncover it in your presence. Letting go does not diminish you. It liberates you. It strips away the noise so you can hear your true voice. It removes the masks so you can see your true face. It silences the chase so you can finally rest in the truth of who you are. Imagine the energy you've spent in your life clinging, pushing, forcing. Imagine what it would feel like to release that burden, to breathe without tension, to wake up without dread, to act without overthinking. That freedom is available, but only when you surrender the illusion that more effort equals more happiness. Only when you accept that chasing is not the path to finding. Only when you embrace the strange truth that the less you need something, the more space you create for it to come. The backwards law teaches us that the way to get what we want is not to want it so badly. That joy arrives not when we pursue it, but when we stop running from what is. That peace comes not through conquest, but through communion. It's a strange and counterintuitive idea, but one that proves itself again and again. When you stop chasing love, you become more lovable. When you stop chasing happiness, you feel more content. When you stop trying to impress others, they become more impressed. This isn't magic, it's alignment. It's the universe responding not to your effort, but to your energy, not to your plans, but to your presence. Think about all the things you've tried to force in your life, the relationships you tried to hold on to even when they were falling apart. The opportunities you begged for that never came. The achievements that left you feeling empty. What if the problem wasn't your lack of effort, but your refusal to let go? What if your peace has always been waiting, just behind your need to prove yourself? What if everything you've been searching for can only be found when you stop searching? That is the paradox. That is the mystery. That is the backward path to forward motion. You've been chasing the answer your whole life, haven't you? From the moment you were taught to want more, be more, achieve more, you were handed a map where the destination was always ahead of you. always just out of reach. You've tried everything. You've visualized, manifested, strived, grinded, and pushed against the grain of the universe with every ounce of your willpower. But something still isn't right. Deep down, you've felt it, that uneasy sense that the more you reach, the further it runs, that the louder you shout into the void, the more silent it becomes, that every time you clutch your desires with desperate fingers, life seems to slip right through them. And now, finally, you are here, at the edge, at the door of something that doesn't need to be forced, only understood. This is the backwards law. The backwards law reveals a haunting, yet liberating truth. The more you pursue feeling better all the time, the less satisfied you become, because pursuing something only reinforces the fact that you lack it. Wanting positive experience is itself a negative experience, and accepting negative experience is a positive experience in itself. This paradox, this simple reversal, breaks everything you've been taught, and that's exactly why it holds so much power. The moment you understand that, your chase is the problem, not the solution. You unlock a new kind of freedom, a silent freedom, one that doesn't yell through self-help slogans or scream through morning routines, but whispers in the quiet moments when you stop trying to fix yourself. It's not that ambition is wrong. It's that obsession is suffering dressed in expensive clothing. When you obsessively desire success, you create failure by definition. When you desperately seek happiness, you validate your own unhappiness. When you chase love to fill your emptiness, you only confirm that you are empty. And so we spiral, desperate to get somewhere while running from ourselves. But here's the twist: no one tells you you were never lacking. You were just looking in the wrong direction. Not forward but inward, not higher but deeper. What you want isn't out there, it's in the surrender, the letting go, the release of the illusion that you must earn worth, prove love, or build happiness like a skyscraper of goals. The backwards law is not passive. It's not resignation. It's alignment. It's trusting that what flows to you in stillness is more powerful than what you chase in noise. When you stop trying so hard to be someone, you become someone worth being. When you stop craving to be noticed, you find the peace of invisibility. When you stop fighting your pain, you start healing. This isn't philosophy, it's physics of the soul. Energy flows where attention goes. But if attention is rooted in fear, the energy becomes resistance. Resistance creates friction. Friction breeds suffering. But surrender transforms. When you accept what is, without grasping or rejecting, you create space. And in that space, the universe shows up not to punish or reward but to reflect. Think about how water behaves. It doesn't force itself into cracks. It flows, and in time, it reshapes mountains. Your mind is the same. It doesn't need to push through walls. It needs to soften, to feel, to trust. The power you seek isn't in control. It's in connection. You're not a machine to be optimized. You're a soul to be realized. And realization doesn't come from doing more. It comes from being fully, entirely, unapologetically human, with your fears, your flaws, your failures, not as problems to be fixed, but as portals to be embraced. In silence, we remember. In stillness, we return. We remember that the joy isn't in the outcome, it's in the presence. We return to the wisdom that life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a dance to be felt. And the music only starts when you stop trying to control the rhythm. The backwards law shows you that the moment you stop needing something, it comes closer. Not because the universe is teasing you, but because your need was the very wall between you and it. Your fear was the fog over your vision. Your expectations were the weights on your wings. But in letting go, you rise, not upward in arrogance, but inward in truth. You're not broken. You've just been at war with your own shadow, trying to outrun your darkness instead of integrating it. But what you suppress controls you. What you embrace transforms you. So invite your fears to the table. Let your doubts speak. Hold space for your failures. Watch as they soften. Watch as they lose power the moment you stop resisting them. This is how freedom begins, not in conquering your demons, but in understanding. They are wounded parts of you asking to be seen. The backwards law is a mirror. It reflects back to you the paradox that what you most desire will often arrive when you no longer need it. Love finds you when you stop proving you deserve it. Peace fills you when you stop escaping discomfort. Abundance flows when you no longer fear lack, because in that state of surrender, you are no longer a beggar. You are a co-creator, not chasing life, but dancing with it, not demanding outcomes, but trusting processes, not forcing clarity, but breathing into the unknown with wide-eyed wonder. You were never meant to control every chapter. You were meant to live the story, the twists, the turns, the unanswered questions. They are not setbacks. They are sacred pauses, intervals in the song of your becoming. And when you try to fast forward through them, you miss the very essence of your evolution. The backward law teaches that progress often looks like standing still, that healing often feels like breaking down, that finding yourself first requires losing what you thought you were. But this is not failure. This is the unfolding, the soft unraveling of illusions that never served you. So slow down, breathe, let go of the obsession to always be more. You are not a project, you are a presence. Your value is not in your achievements, but in your awareness. The moment you stop striving to prove yourself, you meet the self that needs no proof, the eternal, unshakable core of who you are, pure being, untouched by comparison, free from performance. In this space, love is no longer a transaction, it's a frequency. Peace is no longer a goal, it's a return. Success is no longer a finish line, it's a natural outcome of aligned being. You've walked long enough in the illusion that more effort equals more worth. Now, walk backwards, not to retreat, but to return. Return to the truth you've always known beneath the noise, that life is not about controlling, fixing, or earning. It's about allowing. That happiness is not something you chase, but something you remember. That what you truly need is not ahead of you, but already within you. The paradox is the key, and the backwards law is the doorway. Walk through it, and you won't find everything you thought you wanted. You'll find everything you forgot you already had. You'll realize you were never lost. You were just looking forward, when the answer was waiting in the stillness behind you.